Welcome everyone to the Predictive Playbook. This is the Manny's Irish Pub edition of the show. We are live every day, Monday through Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And Rob Veno and Tony Finn will be joining me at 4:45 Eastern Standard Time. Steve Merrill, also WagerTalk, will be stopping by, and we're going to recap our investment shows where we talk about Bitcoin and our trades and crude oil and futures trading and options and all kinds of neat stuff that I once did for many years up on Wall Street. So welcome to the show, everyone, and glad you guys could make it. I'm going to start right out here with a little recap of what I've been doing here. Baseball's been running very well right now. I'm actually ranked number one in Major League Baseball totals for the season at sportsmemo.com. And football last year, football is my niche. And they're running specials right now with myself and mid-major Matt Josephs, who was number one in college football last year. And you can get both of us and save $400 right now by going over to sportsmemo.com and signing up. And you can use that savings then to get some of the other guys, especially the ones that appear on this show, because that's the reason they're on the show, because they're elite, very smart, astute, professional sports bettors that have been doing it a long time and have amazing track records to back that up. I do have 3 Major League Baseball plays going tonight at sportsmemo.com for $19. I've been charging it $19 and regularly it's $49. But since this winning streak started, I wanted to keep the price the same because I didn't want to jinx it. And you can also see the totals here, 69% Major League Baseball totals for the season, 77% since July 26th in the Moneyline Best Bets, and CFL last 5 seasons, 61% and 62% in the NFL preseason. So pretty good stuff there, I think. Pretty proud of it. Keep it humble. Betting guys get awful fickle if you start bragging too much, and you get humbled pretty quick. It's like the golf game that I'm looking at right now with the World Golf Championship. It's the St. Jude Classic that we're watching, and I have several entries into DraftKings, and we can get to them in a little bit as well. I do have Harris English in all but 2 of my lineups. And I feel that's good fortune. I didn't really expect him to shoot 13 under, which is the course record for 36 holes, like he did today. It was a 62 and a 65, I think is what he shot, which is just insane. Dustin Johnson just shot 69, 65, and he's 7 shots behind. So it's just a crazy thing. Now with the game tonight, this is the New York Mets at the Philadelphia Phillies. And we mentioned this yesterday, and I'm going to reiterate it. I believe that the Phillies have a high probability to sweep this series, especially if they win tonight. This is the toughest matchup of the 3. They have Wheeler going Sunday, Suarez tomorrow. And Suarez is an underrated pitcher. I've looked at his stuff. His spin rates, and he has so much upside I can't even begin to tell you. So, hold on a second, guys. I thought I sent this link for my people to come in here this morning already. Just give me 1 second to get this over to them. And there they go. And then we do Steve Merrill. Sorry about this. This is all right. So anyway, we're back to the Phillies here now, and I'm sure Mr. Veno will be joining me shortly. Tony Finn is recording college football segments for an ESPN affiliate right now, so he's going to be in and out. But we appreciate that in and out because that's pretty tough to do a segment, then come on a different show like this, and then go back to a recorded segment. But he's the man. So this system here is 32 and 14 for 70% winning bets using the run line. So I'm going to pull up the odds here for the game tonight. And what I was saying yesterday still applies, that what we want to do is use the minus 1.5 run line, even if Philly would have been a dog. And as you know, if it's a dog, then you're going to get the plus 1.5. But nowadays they have the alternate run lines, even minus 2.5, plus 2.5 run lines. So looking at the spreads here for this baseball game as we speak at sportsmemo.com/odds, and you can also see the same grid at wagertalk.com/odds. Marcus Stroman is going to be pitching in Philadelphia tonight against Kyle Gibson. And right now the Phillies are minus 1.5 plus 175. Now that is really surprising. I think that is a great value, to say the least. The market is telling us that this is going to be like a one-run game, and I don't think it's going to be. If I'm right and my predictive modeling is right, the Phillies are going to win by 3 or 4. And looking at the team totals here, we're going to see it's 4.5 for each team, so a total of 9 combined. But that also is an 8.5 game line, so it's heavy juice to bet under 4.5, and minus 130 for the Phillies to bet under. I'm very tempted here to take the over 4.5 Philadelphia run line at plus 110. The Phillies have been scoring runs like crazy. They're averaging 9 plus runs per game over the last 5 games during this 5-game win streak. And as I tweeted today, they are 12-4 on a 4 or more 5-game streak as a home favorite against a divisional foe if it is the first game of a series. And at this time of the year, these first games are critical for divisional rivals facing each other at this time of the year for obvious reasons, because you want to get that first game won, and then all you have to do is win one of the next 2 and you've won the series. And that's really how they approach it. But as you know, I'm very bullish on the Phillies right now. One of my clients had sent me a direct message today saying, but boy, I'm really worried about that 5-game win streak. But very much like, roulette. You have a red come up 5 times. That doesn't mean that black is due. It just means that red came up 5 times. It's called, statistically speaking, it's called mutually exclusive from the previous flip. It's like flipping a coin and heads comes up 9 times in a row. And it doesn't mean that tails is due. Just like in the NFL, if a team has lost 5 consecutive to the spread, it doesn't mean that they're due. What it may imply is that the market now is going to overreact because of those 5 losses, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're due to win. I can't emphasize that enough. So we are going to take the Phillies for the show here, and the total of 4.5 plus 110. As long as you're not paying more than minus 110 at 4.5 over, it's a solid bet in my opinion. But right now I'm seeing plus money, and I see no reason in the world why they won't score 5 runs, even though it's Marcus Stroman on the hill, who has been spectacular up to his last start, where he allowed 4 runs. And he's only allowed 4 or more runs 3 times this year. He allowed it a second time of 4 and 5 in the beginning of the year. Other than that, it's been less than that. But the fact that he allowed 4 in the last game at this time of the year, again, to me, that's a red flag of fatigue. And just a little bit of fatigue can get a pitcher off his game, missing the spots that the catcher wants him to throw it to. And as you know, you miss by half an inch in Major League Baseball, and that's the difference between a pop-up and a ball going 450 feet. So I do think that the Phillies playing at home, it's nice and hot and humid in Philly, and the ball carries a ton to left field. And I just see the Phillies winning this game tonight convincingly. Let's see, what else can we talk about with this system here? So you have the system here, and then another game that big shout out to Alex Vale, who's a guy that I got to know real well. He's one of my first Twitter followers, and you remember those guys and girls and everybody. And welcome to the show, Mr. Veno. I'm just doing
Hello,
finishing
John.
up a little monologue here, which I don't mind doing. But what I was talking about was Alex Vale, who's been in the chat room
Okay.
more times than I could even imagine. If we had $1 for every time some of these guys were in the show in the chat room, we'd be pretty wealthy. Probably almost as wealthy as Steve Merrill, who will be joining us at 4:45 to talk about Bitcoin.
Oh, good.
And I'm trading his money, by the way, on the show. You'll see.
Lend me some.
Yep.
He takes all of mine. Lend me some.
Yeah, well, the problem is I'm making him more, and
Oh, that's all right. I'll take his capital gains.
yeah, I guess, yeah. But that show's going pretty well. We're trying to successfully merge sports betting with the financial markets and show how both are very similar. And the trades that we have done, so far we're 4 for 4. I'm sure we'll have some losers along the way, but so far so good. But Alex Vale, who's here right now, gave me this system. Okay. And he actually gave me 2 others, and if we have time, we'll do them. But the one that I really like a lot, and we've been pounding on Atlanta pretty good here in a bullish way this week, because I remember Tony Finn said it perfectly, like, don't look now, but here comes Atlanta. And this system here, so this is on the Braves tonight, and they are a prohibitive favorite, but you're going to see why I'm not scared to really lay that wood or possibly play the run line. So you play on home favorites in a divisional matchup that scored 5 or more runs in a single inning in their previous game. And it is the first game of a series. 45-9. I'll say it again. 45-9. And it supports the Atlanta Braves tonight. So that record is a 32% ROI. $100 better over the last 5 seasons has made about $3,200. And that's pretty good for a $100 better. 76-32 record regardless if it's a divisional foe. So I took out the divisional foe part of that query, and it still does real well. It makes 11.1% ROI. So I really like that play a lot for everybody that is in the chat room, and big shout out goes to Alex Vale, and he knows his stuff, and he doesn't sell picks anywhere. He's just it's a true passion and a true hobby for Alex, and I have a lot of respect for his work for sure. And Alex said the right thing here. He said, "Let's go Braves." But don't forget the Phillies there, Alex. Don't forget the Phillies. So I already reviewed the Phillies thing. That every once in a while I do get pretty bold and say that the Phillies are going to sweep the series. I thought you did a great segment today on WagerTalk today. I actually was listening in there.
Oh.
And before I let you talk about that, I heard the part about the diving.
Oh, Steve Merrill watches diving. Yes.
Yeah, and I support my buddy Steve, and we'll talk about it at 4:45 when he comes on, because a long time ago I was an All-American swimmer. During the dual meet season, honest to God, I would not watch diving because of the inexperience of some of the divers. Yeah. And I didn't want to see anybody hit the board.
Right.
But when you're at the Nationals and you're at this kind of elite level, it is fun to watch. And it's kind of like, I used to think NASCAR was just driving around in circles until one day I actually watched it and watched the strategy of 2 tires versus 4 tires, and and then the fascination at Talladega and Daytona, which I think is this week, with the drafting and how you can get next to a car and they can lose air, they can lose control of their vehicle. It just fascinated the hell out of me. But let it be known that I would challenge anybody at Sports Memo or WagerTalk to climb the ladder of the 10-meter platform and just jump off it. I think less than half of the guys that we know would actually, unless alcohol was involved, they'd have to be stone sober and jump off the 10-meter platform, because that's about 35 feet up in the air, and you're going over 30 miles an hour when you hit the water. So that alone, the danger of that sport. Maybe not at the 3 meter springboard, but the stuff they do in the air and then be able to line it up safely. And you have to have your hands like fists. You almost have to punch the water when you go through it. I've never dove off a 10-meter platform. I jumped off only one, and that was in Fort Lauderdale at the Swimming Hall of Fame. And I'm telling you, you look down, there's a lot of brave people up there. That's not my cup of tea. Sometimes I do like a handstand at the end of the platform at that height, and then push off with their hands, much like a gymnast does with the vault. And they do all kinds of spins and twists and everything else. So it's definitely a sport that you don't want to have the twisties, as we heard throughout the Olympics. So if you have the twisties and laying on your back, you could be injured severely. That would hurt a lot. But I thought it was kind of funny that some of the guys just don't find that entertaining. But I will admit there are some events that like the synchronized diving, where you have two people and they're doing the same dive, and it's judged by how well they're synchronized. I lose interest in that because I want to see the best in the world spin and flip and do all kinds of things on their own. But it is pretty remarkable. I think the some of my swimming events are actually more boring than the platform diving, actually. But to each his own. So let's talk about the Phillies here, Rob. And my bullish enthusiasm right now is really, really high. I think Marcus Stroman, and we'll find out tonight. It's hot and humid in Philly, and the ball is going to carry a mile to left center tonight. Phillies have scored almost 10 runs a game over this 5-game win streak. And by the way, they're 12-4 over the last 10 years on a 4 or more game win streak against a divisional foe, first game of the series in the second half of the season. I think that's important because first game of a divisional matchup, when you're going for first place, it's huge. It has tremendous importance, especially in a 3-game set. You win the first one tonight, you only have to win one more to win the series. So I liked what you had to say on the WagerTalk Today show. That's always a great show. So if you don't mind reiterating that again for our folks, that would be great.
Well, yeah, and for those who didn't see WagerTalk today and like watching WagerTalk shows, just making sure I'm loud enough here today, John.
Yeah, you're perfect.
Yeah, go back. It's a little bit entertaining in the beginning. What John's referring to is Steve Merrill saying that he got intrigued by diving last night or caught up in the diving last night watching it. And, of course, Teddy challenged that pretty fiercely, watching diving at all. And then I was brought onto the show, and I backed Teddy. And I think because I see the diving and I shut it off. And I think the problem with diving, at least from my standpoint, and it's got nothing to do any of those events, Olympic events, it has nothing to do with the amount of work, preparation, degree of difficulty, level of skill, whatever that each individual has. I don't think you're mocking the event. I think with diving, it's the, person gets up on the board, they stand there, they do their dive, they get out of the pool, they get a towel, they dry off for 6 minutes waiting for their score, and you're just sitting there, and I can't take it, so I have to shut it off.
It's true.
How you get caught up in that. But Steve, actually, to his credit now, that's not the whole story. Steve was referring to the backstory of one of the divers that he thought was really interesting and found himself, like we all do when we're watching the Olympics. We hear backstories, we hear where they came from, we hear what they had to overcome just to get here, and you root for those people. That's what the Olympics are all about, whether it be U.S. or other countries. You find yourself rooting for folks that have had a hard road and nothing but determination to get there. And Steve latched onto one of those stories, and once he watched one, he wanted to hang around to see if that individual won the event, And so that's what he meant by getting caught up. We had a little fun with it.
We did.
WagerTalk today. You can catch it on YouTube, the episode. John, I think what you're talking about is you want me to go back to the selection I gave on the Braves tonight.
And how that you did a great job how it filters into the mix here. Like if the Phillies don't sweep.
So let me do this. As I spit this out here, and I'll take a little bit of time. We'll just use this as my best bet for this show. That way when it comes best bet time, if Tony arrives and he's on a rampage, at least you won't have to worry about me. I'll already have mine done.
I guess I have mine done too.
I did. I used on that show Washington at Atlanta tonight, the Braves. They are a prohibitive favorite in this contest, somewhere in the $2 I'm trying to look off to my other computer here. I see them at minus $1.90 consensus-wise. So you get varying prices across the board. Of course, we're going to play Moneyline Shop for the best price. What I wound up doing was playing Atlanta on the run line here tonight. And again, I'm glad Tony's not on at this current time because I have a home team run line favorite. And he would want to bring me back to Catholic school with the yardstick and make sure I learn my lesson of how not to do this ever again. But I don't mind doing it. A lot of and I get it. Believe me, I get it. Some guys just, I have my own things as well that I refuse to do. But this is not one that I refuse to do. I played the home team run line here because it knocks the price down to plus $1. And I don't want to lay near $2 if I can lay $1. And I think I have enough significant edges to cover that 1.5 run. So let me start real quick with the Atlanta side here. Starting pitcher here tonight, for those who don't know, Kyle Mueller, because he's a new name on the scene. There's not a lot of starts out there presented by Kyle Mueller for anybody to have a real good handle on him. He's made 3 starts since the All-Star break, though, and that's where he's really starting to make his name in this pennant race. He's pitching very well for the Braves. 3 starts since the All-Star break. And in those 3 starts, he's thrown 14 innings combined, which is just a shade under 5 per. So you're going to get bullpen with Kyle Mueller. They're stretching him out. If he's running real well tonight and his pitch count is low, you may get 6 out of him. In those 14 innings, he's only allowed 17 base runners. That's a 1-2-1 whip. But even better, in those 14 innings, he's only allowed 2 earned runs in the 3 games. The 3 opponents were Milwaukee, the Mets, and the San Diego Padres. So, yes, the Mets don't hit it very well, but since the break, the Brewers have. He threw against them. And the Padres, at that particular time, Tatis was still in the lineup, so that's a really good lineup with Fernando Tatis Jr. 14 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, so almost won an inning, but even better, no home runs. 0 home runs allowed by Kyle Mueller. He's a 3-pitch pitcher. 4-seam fastball, slider, and curve. That's why he's a starter, because he's got 3 pitches. And he throws them all. The distribution's real good here, John. 45% of the time he throws the 4-seamer. 31% of the time so far he's on the slider. And that, by the way, no, it's the curveball, excuse me. 21% of the time he throws the curveball. But that curveball has a whiff percentage that I think, if I'm remembering off the top of my head, because I don't have it written down, it was like 55 or 56%. He gets a ton of swing and misses on that curveball. So those who want to give him a look tonight, check out the curve. 73. Here's another great analytics. 73 batted balls against Kyle Mueller so far this year. Only 4 barrels, which is a stat that they keep the last few years, barrels. In other words, nobody's hitting him hard, right? Nobody's getting the barrel of the bat on the baseball. That's 5.5% of the time. Very weak contact against this guy. Now, when you add into that the fact that, A, the Nationals at the deadline really ransacked their lineup, but B, Juan Soto, and I haven't seen a lineup yet tonight. I don't know if it's posted or not. I'll try and look that up. Very, very high likelihood Juan Soto is not in this lineup tonight. He was pulled from the game yesterday with an injury. They, from what I read this morning, he was going for further examination, and they were going to be extremely cautious with Juan Soto. If you don't get Juan Soto, his price is going to go up as soon as somebody sees the lineups. Braves won't be $1.90 anymore. They'll be $2.10, $2.15. It'll charge up the ladder. So we just played it early on the speculation and very high speculation that Juan Soto won't play in this game. The Nationals' bullpen factors into this. The Nationals' bullpen in 4 games against the Phillies And boy, it was on full display last night, right? I mean, Phillies scored 4 runs down to their last strike in the 9th inning off of this team. The Diamondbacks pulled off that feat as well in their game against the Giants. But in 4 games, the bullpen went 12 2/3, allowed 24 base runners, 14 runs. So you're talking about a 9.94 ERA and a 1.89 WHIP in that series. So the Phillies took full advantage of a team that, again, not only did they trade their lineup, they traded the back end of their bullpen. No more Daniel Hudson, no more Brad Hand. No 8th, 9th inning guys. They really don't have a lot in there. That helps the Braves tonight, especially when you're trying to cover 1.5 runs. The Nationals, here's another thing. We talked about this previously, John, these statistical numbers that cover the entire season. Anybody who wants to look right now, you'll find that the Washington Nationals are the number 1 OPS team against left-handed pitching.
It's almost shocking.
Yeah, and somewhat fraudulent, right? Because since the break, since they traded the whole team away, and anybody who wants to take a look at the lineup that the Nationals put out there, today's Friday, I think it was Wednesday against Ranger Suarez was a left-handed starter. Go look at the Washington Nationals left-handed lineup for that game. You won't recognize anybody beyond Soto and Bell. A lot of rookies. It's just that you can't take that statistic seriously anymore. Washington, number 1 against lefties OPS-wise. The rest of the season is going to be very different. So we like that fact. They're facing a lefty here tonight. Maybe no Soto. And the Braves offense, which I heard you talking about how hot the Phillies offense has been. The Brave offense, 54 runs in their last 9 games. That's 6 per. At the deadline, we'll repeat ourselves here, but they did go out and acquire 3 right-handed bats. Tonight they get Eric Fetty, I think, from the right side for this team. But the bats have been red hot, including one Austin Riley. I didn't even realize until I saw the other day, John, that Ozzie Albies, who hasn't had a terribly great season, batting average-wise, 69 RBIs, though, places him in the top 5 in Major League Baseball. So for those reasons, excuse me, I think it's plenty of reasons to play the Atlanta Braves in this game. And the side factor that I mentioned, which I'm pretty sure you were talking about that ties it all in, is the fact that the Braves play the Nationals here. It's an opportunity to potentially sweep a weekend series at home against a team that's nosediving at the current time. Meanwhile, they know, as well as we do, that the Mets are playing the Phillies, the top 2 teams in the league. The 3 teams are all in a heated race. In Atlanta's mind, if we sweep 3, and the Mets and Phillies somehow one team wins 2, the other team wins 1, they gain even more ground. So I think from a clubhouse mentality standpoint, the awareness of what's going on around them, Mets versus Phillies up north, and they have the Nationals here, I think that plays into the, it's a situational factor. It's not a fundamental factor situational, but I think in August and September these things start to count. I was asked on the show today by Teddy, do you consider the travel factor? They played yesterday, they're flying home, and under a lot of other circumstances I would. But we're in a pennant race now. We're in August. The Braves are finally over 500 for the very first time this season. They got over that hurdle. And again, they know that the 2 teams ahead of them are playing each other in a 3-game series, so it's a chance to gain ground. So I like that situational factor added in. You take all those things up, I think I rattled off 6 reasons right there to bet the Braves. I don't have a ton of reasons to bet the Nationals at this point, especially after what we saw in that 4-game series, right? So I think that the Braves coming home here, their bullpen has been okay. We're not going to say that they've been great. There's a couple exceptions to the rule. But again, in a 7-man bullpen, when you only have 2 arms that you're calling reliable, that's not a great bullpen. But you hope you get the ball to those 2 for sure with a lead. So give me Atlanta minus 1.5 plus $1. And these are situations that, for everybody watching here, you can start to look out for. Start to look out for these series that affect other series, teams that have opportunity, whether it be in the wild card race or in a divisional race, to gain ground because 2 teams ahead of them have a chance to knock each other off. It's a good thing to look at this time of year. And I think the Braves they're showing us what the Phillies are showing us, a determination and an ability to beat lesser teams. Teddy actually asked me today, he said, Rob, don't you consider that series, Atlanta winning that series, more of an erosion of St. Louis at this point in time? And he's right. You can't ignore that the Cardinals are blowing up at this point in time, just like we can't ignore that the Nationals are blowing up and the Phillies swept them. But what are they supposed to do? They have to win those games, right? If they don't win those games, I think I said this to you yesterday because we're both in Philadelphia, and we know what the local fan base and what the local media would do to the Phillies if they went 1-3 in those games against the Nationals. It would be nonstop. But they won 4, and believe me, I was listening to local radio for some reason. I had to be in the car this morning, and wow, WIP, 97.5 The Fan, the 2 local sports stations here, they are fired up about this series with the Mets now. It's a whole different attitude in Philadelphia. Although I will say this, John. One of our, one of our favorites and a local mainstay here, Angelo, 94 WIP. Boy, that morning crew, they hate Joe Girardi. And they were all over Joe Girardi. When is he going to make his next stupid decision? We're winning despite this guy. He's an idiot. Run him out of here. I think they were talking to a beat writer, and Angelo called Girardi a jackass. And the beat writer was like, I'm not going to use that term. But I understand what you're saying. And the point to their argument was that Joe Girardi manages the team at this point in time for the next day. And the point of the WIP crew was we shouldn't be looking at the next day anymore. We should be looking at today. We're a half a game out. Let's win today's game and worry about tomorrow. So it's 2 different schools of thought. Joe Girardi's been around the game a long, long time, and he managed some really good Yankee teams. So it's very hard to sit there and bash his credentials, right? And he did it in Miami too, when they were the Florida Marlins. He was an outstanding manager there as well. So it's hard to bash him. But I can see that point as well. I think that at some point you have to say to yourself, hey, we're right here now. Let's go win games. Not, well, I don't want to use that reliever because it might affect tomorrow's game. But then again, like I say, there's 50 games left, and that's longer than you think. When you're only a half a game out, 50 games is a long, long time. And Joe Girardi's approach may be the right way. So 2 different schools of thought. I think I see the reasoning in both. Give us Atlanta -1.5 tonight plus $1.
I'm writing it down right now. And with the Phillies, your opinion on my strategy was to take the -1.5 run line, which is like plus 180. It's even higher at some places. The betting line is basically -110, -111. I do think I call a combination bet, as you know. Splitting it up with money line and run line makes a lot of sense. Or you bet the series and play the money line in game 1. I like that. Actually, I said that wrong, Rob. I would bet the series and then I would take -1.5 for game 1. That even if they lose tonight, I still have 2 games to go, and we have Wheeler going Sunday.
Right. I think what's tomorrow? It's McGill against
Suarez, I think.
Suarez. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at it this morning, real quick, and the matchups. They're not unfavorable to the Phillies whatsoever, especially the Wheeler matchup on Sunday against his old team. If you're betting series, you almost have to say, okay, I'm banking on Zach Wheeler to win Sunday. Now, can I win one of these other 2? Can I win tonight with Kyle Gibson, a team that the Mets haven't, pitcher that the Mets haven't seen? He just came over from the American League, and a guy who's had some playoff experience. Remember, he pitched for the Twins in the playoffs when the Twins were good. So it's a guy that, because this is tonight's a game, John, with an atmosphere that we haven't seen around these parts in a while, right? I'm interested to turn the game on and see if the bank is lit up tonight with the crowd. It should be.
It better be.
They haven't had that kind of excitement level here in a while. So the question would be, if I throw Kyle Gibson into that environment, can he handle it? And the answer is he's been in the playoffs already. So my answer would be yes. He's pitched for a first-place team within the last 3 years. He's pitched in playoff series within the last 3 years. He knows what it is. I think he'll be fine. Can Marcus Stroman handle that. Good question. Marcus Stroman was on Toronto teams that maybe one was involved when they played Texas. I'd have to go back in Stroman's career and see if he threw in that Texas series. Remember the one where Jose Bautista did that bat flip against Texas that year, and I think Rougned Odor punched Bautista, as a matter of fact, I think, in that series. That was a heated Texas-Toronto series. But I don't know if Stroman was involved in that. If he wasn't, Marcus Stroman really has no playoff history. Now, he's not a guy – I don't know. I shouldn't even say that because you know what, John? I think that he is a guy that can be rattled. Marcus Stroman is demonstrative, to say the least. He's got a lot to say all the time. And if this Philly crowd wants to ride him tonight, let's just say he walks a couple guys and they want to start riding him, I wonder how this guy responds. I really do. We haven't really seen that. I think Gibson, and again, I'll shout out for the Missouri Tigers because Kyle Gibson is an ex-Missouri Tiger. But, yeah, he's definitely somebody. I would count on him to handle the pressure better. I looked at both bullpens here tonight. If you're going to lay 1.5, and let's lay this 1.5 with Philadelphia again before Tony gets here because they're a home team. So we don't want to get in trouble. But the bullpen situation for the Phils, Archie Bradley, I'd be a little concerned about, but they, you know, if need be, I think they'll go to him. He threw 26 pitches last night. I say concerned because for those of you watching, as a guideline for myself, I use 25 pitches. I don't use innings thrown by a pitcher because you have quick innings, you have hard innings, you have low leverage innings, you have high leverage innings. But if you get over 25 pitches, generally speaking, there can be some fatigue the next night. Archie Bradley had 26. Jose Alvarado, 23 yesterday. If he throws tonight, it would be back-to-back, just like it would Bradley. But worse for Alvarado is it would be 4 and 5 days if he goes. So I think Alvarado's probably absent from this game, but Ian Kennedy's good to go. Again, we'll make this play before Tony gets here because he does not like Ian Kennedy, but I kind of think that was a good move.
I think it was too.
And Hector Neris is good to go. So if you're talking about the 4 best arms that they have, 2 are definitely ready. Bradley they could use if they had to. Where the Mets are concerned, it's a little different. And another reason why Philadelphia would be a good look tonight, their closer, Edwin Diaz, is on paternity leave. So you have no closer in that. But now you don't I should say no closer because they have guys that can close. But let's face it, Edwin Diaz is the closer. His wife's having a baby. The team let him go yesterday. It may be tonight and tomorrow. Maybe he's back Sunday. But keep an eye on that situation because it's important to the Mets. Miguel Castro has thrown back-to-back games. Jeurys Familia has thrown back-to-back in 4 out of 5. He's thrown 33 pitches the last 2 days. 2 live arms, fastball arms that are probably gone for tonight. And if they pitch, I think you want to be on the other side of those guys because the fatigue factor should be there. Aaron Loop had yesterday off. Before that, he had thrown 3 of 4. I think he'll be ready here. Trevor May is the guy who got the opportunity to save the first day Diaz was gone, so I think you see Trevor May. But that Diaz situation is a big, big bonus for the Phillies. If they're chasing or 5-4 in the ninth or something like that, and they don't have to see Edwin Diaz and that 100-mile-an-hour fastball, the chances of coming back are even better. So I think the Phils have a better bullpen situation here tonight as well. We'll keep tabs on the Edwin Diaz thing because if he comes back, the bullpen edge no longer exists. But for tonight it does. So Phillies, let's go Phils.
Yeah, that's why I like this game so much. I think we're getting a really good price because Stroman's on the hill. And you're real good with historic facts. You mentioned how the Philly fans can get on somebody.
Yeah.
I remember being at the playoff game with Cincinnati, and it was Bronson Arroyo was on the mound. And it started out the chant, and I can't remember what they were chanting. It was like 1 word or 2 words max. And it had to do with a previous blunder, possibly against St. Louis in the previous playoff season. But I don't remember. I didn't know if you did, but they got him so rattled, he couldn't throw a strike to save his life. And they just kept getting louder and louder and louder. But at first, you couldn't understand what they were saying. Then all of a sudden, you got it. And I just can't remember the situation, but it was a very bad playoff game that he had. And the Philly fans were reminding him of that game. And they were successful.
And like I say, this guy, Marcus Stroman, is a guy who hears everything. You know, in sports, they call them rabbit ears, right? You hear everything. You act like you don't, and these guys always say the right thing. I don't listen to any talk radio. I don't read any newspapers. I don't read anything on the internet. But yet they know everything. So a guy like Stroman, again, who is, if he does well, he's going to make sure the other side knows about it and the home fans know about it. In other words, if he were to come out in the first and strike out the side, he's not just going to walk back to the dugout and get checked by the umpire. He's going to let you know in some form or fashion how great he is at that moment, which will irk the Philly fans even more. You almost want that opportunity to happen. You almost want that to happen to fire up the crowd, because then when he's in a jam, this town can be relentless. And you make a good point about Arroyo. This guy is not this is not Jacob deGrom, who wouldn't hear a single thing, just continue on about his business. Marcus Stroman he's been in some altercations with guys, verbal altercations. There's been a couple of bench clearers with Marcus Stroman as the centerpiece. So it'll be, it's great if we don't even have a bet on this game, John. It's great to watch. This is a series that's fun to watch. Because when the Phillies go to New York, it'll be the same way, right? New York will be the same way. Although, you know what? I think the Philly fans are worse than Met fans. Yankee fans, probably. Met fans, they're tough, but they're not. The Philly fans are tough. So this will be an interesting situation for Marcus Stroman tonight.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part of it, because the Mets fans will come down tonight. Yeah. And there's a lot of alcohol involved, and unfortunately, to think that there won't be multiple fights after the game is just ridiculous to even think. Yeah. And that's the sad part of it. But you're right about the teams you named. I think the team that I respect the fan base the most, and there's one exception with this team, is the Boston Red Sox. And it's different when the Yankees are in town. It's a lot livelier. It's a lot more passionate. It's a lot, defending the home turf. The fans are more into it, above and beyond the normal cheering for their fans. But I've been to Fenway several times where, I saw Josh Beck against Toronto once throw 52 pitches to get out of the first inning. No booing. We got into the seventh inning. No, it was sixth inning right before they always sing Sweet Caroline during the seventh inning stretch, which is cool. And there's an unspoken rule that when you're at a Boston Red Sox game, you do not leave until it's over. No matter what the score is, you stay. And the game was a blowout. It was 11-1. Nobody left. And no matter what Toronto fans did in the stands, if they cheered their team, nobody said, sit down, or, like you would find in Philly and other places. It's not just Philly. It's going to be pretty passionate. Yeah, after all, the Eagles, and I'm sure you remember this, back when it was the Vet instead of the new field called Lincoln, the Link. They actually had a court in the underneath the stadium. For fans that got so out of hand that they had to be arrested, and they had hearings. Even while the game was going on, they had hearings.
And I can vouch for that because I have friends. I lived in Connecticut for 31 years, but as a kid, in my 20s, I had friends who actually had to appear in that court. So it's true. They had it under there because there was so much... I don't know what you even call it that goes on in the stands, John, but reason enough to have a courtroom right there on the premises because of some of the stuff that goes on in that place. In Boston, and it's the same in a lot of places. You get 99% really good and you get 1% knuckleheads. And I know that Boston's got their reputation, and it's a racial one. And I remember a couple of years ago, maybe about 4 years ago, Adam Jones for the Orioles was there, and he was just getting verbally assaulted with racial slurs out in left field to where they stopped the game. And there's really no place for it. And it's a bad reflection on the Boston crowd and a city.
I do remember that.
You know, and again, it's not like it's an entire 40,000
right.
that are it's there's always a crew of knuckleheads in there, and Boston, you know, for years has tried to live down that reputation. You know, that goes back to the 60s. And Red Auerbach brought in, actually, what a great thing when he brought in Bill Russell, and I'm pulling a Tony Finn now, and I'm going off the rails. But I'll get back on course. I'll get back on course here. But it's different in Philadelphia, where in the stands, you know, it's a higher percentage than one that they won't be yelling racial slurs, but they are knuckleheads. I mean, we've seen guys puke on Girl Scouts in the stands at Citizens Bank Park. So it's a different breed. Delco, it's a different breed.
It is. There's no doubt in my mind about it.
Security will earn their money tonight, John. The security force will earn their money. This whole series probably. Like you said, there's going to be some altercations. A lot of alcohol. You have till 7:05 to get all oiled up and get to the park. And those traveling down I-95 to get here for the other side. So I'm glad we have TVs.
It'll be lubed up.
There's no question.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too. Like in my family, we had the season tickets for so many years, and you know, my oldest boy and I probably saw, and I'm not kidding, probably 1,500 baseball games. And at the professional level, different venues. Neither one of us has ever seen a home Eagle game.
Huh.
None of my family members have gone to a home Eagle game. And there's one reason. We just talked about it.
Safety.
When the kids were young, I didn't want them to come out of a game and then see violence. And that's what it kind of was back then. You know, you could avoid it. You might be able to get out and not see anything crazy, but you know, it was all over the news that it wasn't just like, you know, one little fight by one car. You know, it became like almost like mobs. And unfortunately, there were some you know, deaths because of it. There was one guy that got shot outside that bar right there at the Citizens Bank Park. It wasn't a baseball game. It was an Eagles game. The bar happened to be open, and for whatever reason, the guy got shot, and that was it. I don't need to be around that.
No, and you know what, John?
Don't need to be around it.
They'll pick on their own because we don't have to go any further back than 2 years. Not the COVID year last year, but 2 years ago. Power forward for the Sixers, Mike Scott, is from the Washington, D.C. area. Phillies had a home game against the Redskins. Mike Scott had his Redskins jersey on, walking through the parking lot past an Eagles tailgate where they instigated a fight. Mike Scott is 6'8", 230, 240, whatever he is. And they don't care that he plays for the home team. He plays for the Sixers, you fools. But they went after him. So that's what you're dealing with in a lot of instances. And, again, we don't want a broad stroke and paint all 70,000 at Lincoln Financial, you know, as this. But there's a percentage of folks there. Unfortunately, the truth is what the truth is. And altercations tonight between the Phillies and Mets in a heated contest where there's a half a game separating two teams heading into this weekend, I think can be expected. Hopefully not a huge amount, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rob. Welcome to the show, Steve Merrill.
I look bigger than you guys. I'm ready to rumble.
Yeah, you're jacked.
I know. You can take me as your front line. I got my Philly green on. You know, the one thing that's gotten better about the NFL, see, baseball, there's too many games. You can still get cheap tickets. But the one thing that's changed since I was a kid, my first Redskin game was 1981. I would have been 8, 9 years old. And we had season tickets from 82 on, basically. So I probably went to over 100 Redskin games. That was the sport I saw a lot of. But
I like that stadium. That's a true goal.
And John, that's actually when we stopped going to Redskin
Yep.
games is when they switched stadiums in '97. So RFK was a great. We 40-yard line middle section there. We kind of inherited them from Joe Crazy Legs Scudero, who was a Redskin running back in the 50s. He signed them over to us. We kept getting them every year, and then eventually he just put them in care of us for like 30 years. So technically they were never our season tickets, but we'd pay him, have them mailed to us. He never wanted to go anymore. And there was like 40-yard line right in the middle. And then they go to the new stadium in '97, FedEx Field, and that becomes the club level. So we get bumped up, and the stadium is so much bigger that the seats are on like a 50-degree incline. I felt like I was going to fall out. And traffic was a nightmare for the first couple of years until they put in an additional exit there that you see now. It's an exit 16 because the Cap Center was 15 and then there was 17. You'll notice there's only one even number exit on 495, and it's exit 16. They built it like a year later just to feed for 8 games a year. It's pretty crazy. But, the ticket prices have gotten ridiculous for football, and the NBA also. And I think that has cut some of the riffraff out because – most of these guys that have 9-to-5s and these businessmen, they're not going to get in fistfights and get all drunk on a Tuesday night. Baseball is probably where you still see it a little bit just because there's so many tickets and there's so many cheap tickets available. But I've got some good Redskin stories. We never saw the craziness like the Eagles, but I'll still never forget. I'm like 9, 10 years old, and we're sitting there, and some guy, my dad got to where we wouldn't go to the Monday Night Football games. And it was also because he had to work in the morning, but, we get home at midnight. I had school. So we didn't do the Monday night games for that reason, but I found out years later, it's kind of the same reason you had, John, with your boy, is that he didn't want me to, the Monday night crowd was a little rough even at Redskin games because it was a 9 o'clock kickoff, and it would get a little nasty. We went some in later years, and I think most of the things I saw were Monday night games. I'll never forget some guy just walked by in the rail section, like right in front of us, and just yacked straight in front of us. And then like 2 seconds later, someone comes and slips in it. I'm like 12 years old. It was funny yet also gross at the same time. And you'd see the one guy with the cowboy jersey in your section. I probably saw a couple fist fights in hindsight. I don't think they scarred me, but yeah, I'm thinking back on it now. Like I do think we kind of avoided. Part of the reason we avoided the Monday night games, those were kind of the tickets we give away. It was just late to start with. That was the biggest reason. But a secondary reason, those Monday night games got kind of nasty as well. 9 and 10 o'clock at night, people were pretty liquored up, to say the least.
Yeah.
Sunday at 1 o'clock, you got a real problem if you're liquored up by like 11:30 a.m. Sunday morning heading into a stadium, right? It's a lot easier at 8 o'clock on a Monday night to get liquored up.
Maybe Rob will invite him to not go to the game, but we'll hang out at the Xfinity Center, and we'll arrive at, I think the gates open at 8 in the morning for a 1 o'clocker.
They used to. I'm trying to think if they pushed that back or not.
I think they did because of safety reasons.
Yeah, but when you could get and from my neck of the woods, it was the same going to the Meadowlands for the Giants.
Yep.
When you're in your teens, late teens, early 20s, and you're old enough to go with your buddies rather than going as a young kid with your parents, you don't fear things as much. So, yeah, let's get down there 8:15 and start getting tanked, and and that's what they do. And I think that for those reasons, I think Philadelphia might have pushed it. I could be wrong, but I don't think you're allowed in that parking lot at 8 a.m. anymore.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's actually 10:30.
Yeah, they want to try and cut some of these people. It doesn't stop them from drinking at home or on the way to the game, but
I was going to say the other thing other than ticket prices is the $7, $8, $10, $12 beers.
Right.
And then I remember at the Capitol Center, because actually, other than the Redskins games, I've probably been to 50-plus Capitals games over the late 80s, early 90s. I got hit by the puck in 1983. I don't know if I've ever told that story to you two. I've told it to Gabe Morency a couple times because Gabe's a big hockey guy. Tony's not here. I'd save it for when Tony's here, but you can relate. So, 1983, I'm 9 years old. We go to a weeknight game at the Cap Center. My dad's office got 10 games a year out of the 40. They shared them with that other ones. Fourth row, blue line, right next to the penalty box, like 4 seats over. And third period, they're playing the Calgary Flames, 1983, November. The Capitals are trying to clear it shorthanded. From the backside, they clear it around, and it runs up the glass, hits me square. I never saw it coming, hit me right here in the head. Knocked me out. I'm woken up, carried up. The referee threw a towel over. You could see my skull bone. In hindsight, didn't hit my eye, didn't hit my temple. It's really miraculous I wasn't injured worse.
And that you're as smart as you are now.
Yeah, just think how much smarter I could have been and how much better looking I could have been, Rob Veno. My goodness.
But Joe D'Amico.
But they gave me a stick. They gave me a puck and a stick. And this is in Landover, Maryland on a Tuesday night. Not a great area because that's where FedEx Field is basically as well.
Yeah.
And that's another takeaway I was going to say when you guys were talking earlier I thought about is that keep in mind these stadiums by default are never in a good area.
Right.
Because we're in metropolitan areas, where do you get several hundred acres for a parking lot at stadium that's not extremely expensive, So they always have to put them in bad areas and they build up around them. Same with Camden Yards. That's why it's that old warehouse district in Baltimore. I've got a good story about my car disappearing in Camden Yards I'll tell you guys sometime as well. But,
right,
I get
aliens.
hit. Yeah, well, I get hit. They say we can take you to the local hospital or you can go anywhere else. And we went back to Northern Virginia. Turns out there was a plastic surgeon on call at that hospital. I get stitched up. You can't even see it nowadays. But they called the very next day basically to make sure we weren't going to sue, I guess. Like, making sure you're okay. We'd like to offer you 4 free tickets to any game. So we took Edmonton to see Gretzky.
Nice.
And the tickets they gave us like a month later is literally in the lower bowl corner behind the net, which is like the most dangerous spot in the entire arena. And this is before they had the net because I was scared shitless, the entire time. So I know there was no net like they have now, and it was miserable. And I didn't go back then for 4 years until I was in 7th grade, and then I started going to a ton of playoff games. Almost got in a fight with a Penguin fan when we got swept one time. I got pretty agitated. Nothing was worse than Capital games. Redskin games, they were good, and it was a stadium full of Redskin fans. Capital games, they weren't quite as good as the Flyers, the Rangers, and the Penguins, and there'd be as many Pittsburgh fans, if not more. That is the worst thing in all of sports is when your arena in a playoff game has 5,000 from the other squad, and they're cheering as they eliminate you. I hated that. And now they rock the place, they sell it out, and I don't give a damn about the Capitals anymore. But, I got hit by a hockey puck, first game ever, true story. And in hindsight, really lucky it wasn't worse. But my dad's favorite part of that story was that there was like 4 other people in the infirmary in the third period that night that had been hit by a puck. Because the glass is higher now, and they've got those nets.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, the early 80s. I'm sure you guys went to some Flyer games. The early 80s, it was dicey.
If they cleared that, it could make it into the upper deck.
Oh, it was dicey. Baseball's dangerous. Hockey was deadly. Really scary stuff.
Well, I think the one thing I'll cap this off, we started with the Philly media, and we didn't want to say any names, but I think Rob mentioned Angelo. And one of my best friends on the all-time list, I've known him for years. We actually, I mentioned him to you, Steve, on the investment show.
Right.
And, big shout out to Ken down there in Dallas. So I just happened to be visiting with him, and the Eagles were in town. And in Philadelphia, when Dallas comes in, it's like the rivalry. It is passionate, and they wear Cowboys suck shirts. And words that are way worse than that.
That was with the Redskins too. Yep.
And horrible, right? It crosses the line. But you go to a Dallas Eagles game in Fort Worth, Texas. There's no rivalry.
Yeah.
There's no guys wearing shirts that say the Eagles suck And I was so blown away by that I turned to the Philly media again. They create this hype. They're now creating the hype with Girardi. And how does Angelo just come across and say that Girardi, we're just waiting for him to make his next mistake? Well, how about saying it before he makes the mistake on air? The benefit of hindsight, we're all geniuses.
Right.
And that's the part that gets me really irked with those guys. They come across like they think they're the general manager of the year, and they couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag, in my humble opinion. But they have these the power to say these inflammatory things that get the fans all fired up, and then it's dumb. It's just not being a fan. It's just not good. Right, Rob?
Well, that's what they do for a living, though, right? They'd be general managers otherwise, or they'd be star players. It's like that's their stick.
Well, they're both. Some of these guys, the ego is so big it's both.
Right.
Poor Carson Wentz now. That's not a good story. But here in Philly, thank God we got rid of him.
Well, hey, look, New York's not much better. The other NFC East team, they're the Giants. Those fans are probably a little nasty, and the media there's worse than any Philly or everything. And, of course, the Cowboys were the Redskins' big rival in the 80s when I was growing up for good reason. But that's a good point about Dallas. They were like the top pole setter there, yet they were the one which didn't have it. It was like everyone else wanted to catch them. They were the nasty cities. So
the rival they had was the 49ers. Back in that day. That era. It was definitely the rivalry was the 49ers. But the Dallas fans, when I was at the 2 Eagle games that I saw in my lifetime in Fort Worth, it was another game. But that's not the case in Philly. I can assure you, that's not the case in Philly. But anyway, we're taking the Phillies as a best bet tonight. We also have a question here from Justin Nelson on Boston. And I think Boston is another great value play. They're plus what, 150? And yes, they're on a terrible losing streak. They've given up the lead, but they're still the Red Sox. And now you're getting a team that is a winning record team that I don't think is crashing like the Mets are. And if there's ever a time for them to step up, it's these teams that go through these losing streaks that were leading the division, they get on the road. That's almost a good thing because they get away from the fan base, they get away from the media, they relax, they play the game, and suddenly they win. So I think for Justin Nelson here, I like Boston tonight. Maybe a double pizza with anchovies and pepperoni. Call it a 1-unit play on a scale of 1 to 5. And we were also talking, Steve, about the Phillies minus 1.5 run line because that offense is hot. And the offense is hot because of Bryce Harper. And, suddenly, again, I'm not trying to bash the Philly media tonight. I really mean not. But all year long, we paid this guy all this money and he sucks. That's what they would say on the local radio station. Now, if you look at his stats, he's suddenly in the top 10 or top 5. I think he's number 5 now in batting average. But do they correct themselves and say, boy, this guy really has got it going now? No, of course not. They don't ever mention that. But this Philly offense is rolling, and as Rob said, you got to trust Girardi. I mean, he was manager of the Yankees for how many years? He was the catcher for the Yankees. And if you don't know it by now, the catcher is the quarterback of a baseball team. And I would not question his judgment ever. Everybody's going to make mistakes, but I try not to judge, make fun of somebody or judge them in hindsight. That's just not fair. But I think the Phillies will be fine this weekend.
Well, I mean, Boston was a team, that we kind of felt it was due to regress a little bit. If you look at the run differential, they're plus 42. The Rays that have now passed them, plus 105. The Blue Jays, plus 114, yet they're only in 4th place. The Yankees, plus 15, are ahead of them. In fact, if you look at the whole American League, the Blue Jays have the 2nd best run differential in the entire American League, and they're only 4th in their own division. Do you think that's ever happened in the history of baseball? Probably not. That's almost, it's insane.
It's almost impossible.
2nd best in the entire American League. In fact, if I look at the full league, only the Giants and Dodgers had. So they're 4th in all of baseball, and they're only 4th in their own division. Yet the best in the division. So, there's definitely upside to Toronto still, a little bit downside to Boston. The question is that incorporating the line? Like you said, John, I'm not going to lay $1.50 against Boston, so I didn't play this one tonight. But something else also to keep in mind about Toronto, they returned home to Canada last Friday to be exact. They're now 6-1 straight up those 7 games. Now, granted, they did play Cleveland and Kansas City. It's not exactly Boston. But they did get a boost back home, and Rob and I talked about that a few times on the weekend show. We thought they would. Their offense is still very good. I know their numbers get inflated from the minor league parks the last couple of years. But if you look at road numbers only, both Boston and Toronto top 5 in most road numbers. So these are 2 very good offensive teams. Over would be the only way I'd probably play the total. And it's a very modest number here. I mean, I think it was 9 last I checked, if I'm not mistaken, and opened higher than that. In fact, it opened 9.5 in some spots. It's now 9. We saw that last week, by the way. We saw it open like 10.5, drop to 9.5. It's almost like, the odds makers weren't aware that Toronto is going to be lower scoring at home now. I can't imagine they didn't know that. But we've seen some moves on these Toronto totals so far the first week back in above the border.
Yeah, good stuff. Real good stuff. And real quick, Steve, let's recap our Tuesday show. Every Tuesday around, I think it's around 1 o'clock, actually, we do an investment show. We're tying in sports betting markets and the similarities to the financial markets like Wall Street. And we talk about Bitcoin, crude oil, Australian dollar, whatever is coming up on our charts. and we use patterns based on candlesticks to identify trading opportunities. And Steve uses trend following systems that have been very successful for many years for him. So we're combining forces, and so far we're doing pretty good. I did pull up today's action here. I just wanted to look at it because
the only one we've gotten wrong so far, the Australian dollar went down a little bit today. And by the way, my trend is still short the currencies, and a lot of them dropped. I was long almost every currency except the Aussie dollar. That one was kind of trading, so I did agree with you when we went long with that one. But currencies took a hard hit. But boy, were we spot on with crude. Boy, were we spot on with Bitcoin overall. And then the 10-year note that we just did the other day, another hard day down the last 2 days. And Rob Veno, all your vacation properties, refinance them this week. We said this 3 days ago.
Yeah, that's right.
We said it's the time to refinance on Wednesday, and the 10-year note is just the interest rate has risen, the price has dropped. So the interest rates have dropped a good 5-10% here in the last couple of days. For any listeners of this show that didn't tune in, refi this week. The best rates you're going to see is within the next couple of weeks. I honestly believe that it might be the best we see for years. I think now is the time.
Yeah, 10-year note is definitely our best trade because it took about $8,000 in margin. I'm looking at the account live here, and it's up $5,000 on 5 contracts. So we've made a point on the move, which doesn't sound like much, but in bond land, that's a ton. And when you see big red bars on the charts, that means the close is lower than the opening. And that means there hasn't been any interest in any purchasing, and the selling pressure is intensifying because there's no buying anywhere. And this 10-year and 30-year bond could go down a lot more yet before it's all said and done.
Yeah, and just to put it in perspective, it's the inverse of the interest rate. So with interest rates starting to rise the last couple of days, that means the price of the bonds are going down. It's kind of confusing, but basically the interest rate, when we put this trade on a couple of days ago, I believe it was like 1.1, and now it's like 1.29. So just in 2 days, that's how much the interest rate's gone up. That's almost a 10% increase in just 2 days. That's substantial. And I mean, we could go to negative rates. Europe has done it, but we hardly ever see the 10-year go below 1%. So there's a lot of room for it to raise. I mean, 2-3% is normal. So that's a tremendous upside for rates, which is downside for bonds. We are short the 10-year note and bonds and whatever else you want to short, and they're all going to move the same way. But yeah, Rob, I've stopped using your money. We've actually set up a real trading account. John started it with $50,000, and it's been doing pretty well. We've got some momentum behind it, and the trades have made a lot of sense. It's off to a good start this week.
Yeah, the crude trade is actually up pretty much too. I'm looking at that. That's
that had another hard day down.
72, and now we're in the high 67s.
Yeah, and that was down a couple percent today from what I saw just flashing across the TV. I didn't dig into it too much. By the way, big move today, John. I know something I wanted to mention with you. Gold plummeted today. Took out basically, and in fact, it's been plummeting all day, and I'm checking it right now where it closed. It closed basically at a several-month low today. So that's probably a sign that gold might be dropping. I will be short gold Sunday night in my trend model, and I was close to it the last 2 days. It was right at my cutoff. Damn, I wish once again, I'm technical only. There's no second guessing. This is why I do it this way. But within less than $1 the last 2 days, I would have been short, but it didn't try trigger yet, and all of a sudden it crashed today. So cost me a little bit, but gold down. I'd like to see if you see any long-term buy supports or whatever, because it had a nice little run up basically for February, March through April through May, and it's come right down now. But yeah, gold really dropped today. Didn't seem to affect Bitcoin, which is interesting. Bitcoin is actually closing at the high of the day. It's now over 42, almost 43,000. So this really makes you think, is Bitcoin the new gold? Because you would think they would do the same thing, and they did the exact opposite today. Big time divergence between the two.
Looking at the headlines for gold, and silver was down almost 5% too.
Yeah, luckily I've been short silver. Normally they're about 70% correlated, but luckily my trend model's been short silver for months now. So I've kind of been net neutral, I guess, on the metals, you could say, which is fine with me because they've been zigzagging. But yeah, you got to wonder if that's the breakdown lower now with gold following. But yeah, silver's been lower than gold for a while. It's kind of strange. You don't see that normally.
Yeah, the non-farm payroll report was really strong. And that's my guess off the top of my head why gold got absolutely slaughtered today. I mean, that was taking the I was taking it out behind the shed, and definitely a falling knife. Definitely a falling knife, for sure.
Well, Rob Veno likes his gold coins. So, Rob, I don't want to say go liquidate them right now. But my stronger advice would be to refi all those vacation homes because you're going to get a great rate. And then put a little bit of money into John and $50,000 trading account, and we'll let you ride with us. As long as you don't bring any of that Tony Finn money. Don't bring that. First of all, we're not going to convert the Belizean currency. Even John might not know what the Belizean currency is. John knows his currencies. I don't know if they have one or not even. Might be the dollar.
I think it is the U.S. dollar.
I was going to say it might be the dollar. Or it's going to soon be Bitcoin since they don't extradite. All these countries will probably just be Bitcoin.
So that's the one difference between Tony Finn and I is I know the country's currency. He knows the country's extradition laws. I know
they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand.
My favorite one to say when I was doing shows back then was, and I would do it for fun because I had some Polish friends, and that is the zloty. The Polish zloty.
There's some good ones. Like team nicknames. Currencies is a good bar trivia question as well. Although the euro kind of took away some of the fun because basically they all 10 or 20 countries are the euro now. But there's some good ones out there. The Korean won.
Yeah.
Or the Japanese yen, of course. What's the Brazilian? Brazilian is the real, right? The real. See, I actually know a little bit of currency. Yeah, I don't know Belize. I was guessing dollar. I might
South
be right
Africa?
I actually had that in my trend account. The South African ZAR is the symbol. I can tell you the futures contract symbol. It's ZAR, but I don't remember the name of the currency.
The rand.
Rand. Okay. Yeah.
They also
ZAR.
have that.
Yeah, I knew that.
They also have the James Bond Kruger Rand, which was featured in the James Bond movies. But anyway, on those shows, just recap, because it's a green show. What we mean by that is that you can look at it and learn some of the topics we talked about. In the last show, we went over a lot. We talked about a technical tool that I've used for that's been around for close to 50 years. And it's called the Stoudemire Profile, and it was done by created by a pit trader, Peter Stoudemire, and it's a very good tool. So you can go listen to that. We also talked about bond convexity, which is another term that we need a definition from Mr. Finn on. We talked about McCullough duration and how we weight 2-year treasuries to 30 to make them perform exactly the same. Those are done for institutions. Like an endowment fund, like a Harvard endowment fund would be doing trades like that, and it helps. When you do a trade, we talked about the knob, notes over bonds in the futures pit. You got to know what you're doing. You just don't go out there and then just buy bonds or short bonds or buy the Aussie, whatever. There's a lot of in-depth stuff that I highly recommend you learn. Paper trade these things first. And get a real good understanding of what it is that we're doing, and then try it. There's a lot of alligators, crocodiles, and sharks in these markets that we're talking about, especially Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
That's all I have to say on that.
Well, my big thing is I'm big on paper trading though, but I've come to realize even as I was learning, and I'm as disciplined as they come, as you guys know. Even for me, it's hard to paper trade. You really have to have skin in the game. So I would paper trade just to figure out how it works. You do. You have to, and the best thing that could happen is you lose early.
Yep.
And I made some mistakes early, and it was, it wasn't. I don't want to say it was play money, but it was semi-play money. And it's like anything. And trend following, my whole approach is trend following. You let your winners run, and you cut your losses short. That's trend following in a nutshell. It's a great way to live life, by the way, whether it's relationships or anything, right? It's true, and that's how I look at life. But so once you get better at it, as I did, then you let your account get bigger, you let your bets get bigger. And it's a great analogy to finish up the show today with sports betting, right? I mean, You could paper trade sports betting, but there again, we all know you got to have that emotion. You got to go on that 1 in 10 run with real money to know how that affects you. Go on tilt, basically, like in poker. So start with a $25 unit. Start with a $50 bet. And then if you can consistently win for a year or two, then put up $100, $200, $500, thousands like the pros do, like we do. So paper trading applies to the financial markets and sports betting, but you really, it's as fast as possible, even if you are going to lose, have real money. and just really have it small. And once again, if you lose assume you're going to lose 100% of that bankroll, and assume it's not going to affect you one bit, emotionally, financially, anything. And I look at it, John, I looked at it like, I didn't go to trading school. We go to college. I mean, people pay $100,000 now to go to 4 years of college, and they get stuff they don't even use. So if I lose a few $1,000s in a trading account or in a sports betting account, and I get actionable, learnable information from that I become better with, it's worth the price of admission. So I'm big on paper trading, but I've slightly changed my view on that over the years, where I think you need fun money. What do you want to call it? Fun money paper trading, maybe it'd be the hybrid.
Yeah. And you got to have the street smarts. You can have a master's degree, and, I'm glad that I did that. But when I got to Wall Street, it did very little. Academia and real life trading, real life sports betting. The studies that I have found most interesting to myself, and the ones that I do, are human behavioral types. So I've done stuff with machine learning, with clinical trials of identifying the right mix of patients to have in a clinical trial so it doesn't get disqualified. And you can take the same tools and apply them to sports betting behavior. And, I can show this in 30 seconds. This is, let's see, I can't tell what team this is. Atlanta Braves, as of today. This is 1,100 tweets of stop words that it's a package for Python made by MIT, and it identifies negative, positive, neutral words and tweets that had the hashtag of the Atlanta Braves, which I can't remember right now. It's something for the A, I think. It's hashtag for the A. And it comes up with this. So this tells you the sentiment of the betting community for the Braves. So then we go to here, and this one is Let's Go Mets, hashtag LGM. So you can see it's much more negative. And why? Because they're losing. And then quickly we can look at... actually, I apologize. This is the Phillies. So I ran the Phillies and the Mets, and for a Philadelphia team, 7.7 negative, to Rob's point. He said that they're fired up on the radio. This is it. We're going to destroy them, and this is what happens. But these tools are very useful then in identifying betting opportunities, and sometimes they become contrarian. But anyway, we can talk about these things next week. So, free bets to recap for everybody. We're doing Boston for a half unit show bet, not a full blown one, unless you guys want to make it one. I think it's worth a bet. We have the Phillies either money line at minus 110 or minus 1.5 at plus 185, and then we talked about the combination bet of betting the series and taking the minus 1.5 run line at plus 185 as an alternative investment into the Phillies. And then the one I think that Rob and I liked the best was the Atlanta Braves. And Alex Vale, who's become a friend of mine, he's one of my first followers, and we got to know each other through COVID when I didn't have barely even 200 followers. And we became friends, and he's very good with analytics and database work, and he came up with a system that was, I can tell you what it is, 45-9, 32% ROI, $100 bettors made $3,200. You bet on home favorites that scored 5 or more runs in a single inning in their previous game in a divisional matchup, and it's the first game of the series of the second or after the All-Star break. So those divisional series become very important. First game of the series, and they had a very good game if they scored 5 runs in a single inning in the previous game.
So the previous game was not the same team, same opponent?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's the when you put in that parameter, first game of series, that automatically changes the opponent. Got you. So yes. 45-9. And even if you don't have a divisional matchup, it's 76-32, which is still very, very good. So, unless you guys have anything else to say, you guys Well, definitely promote something you have going on for the weekend or tonight. And we'll start with Rob, and he's been running hot in baseball. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, it's been good finally, John. I mean, it was a struggle up until post All-Star break, but last 30 plays, 22-8. So it's been really good.
It's awesome.
Up and available right now, WagerTalk.com. Couple of 4% best bets up there for this evening. I said it this morning on WagerTalk today, but there's so many huge favorite prices as we come down the stretch here. It's hard to navigate through a lot of this stuff. But I found a couple of games that I like here tonight. So once again, they're up and available at WagerTalk.com. Want to just say quickly that Monday, for those interested in more college football, I'll be with Drew Martin Monday afternoon as we go through the Pac-12 conference, kind of in quick hitter style, but you can pick up some good info there. We've done a series of conferences so far, so that'll be coming next Monday, and be on the lookout for a couple of other things football-wise. I'm going to leave the promotion for Sirius XM Radio tomorrow to Steve because he does it so much better than I do, but we'll both be with Joe Rainieri tomorrow. Other than that, guys, last night showed us it's football time. I did not have a play on that game. I will say this real quick. For those of you that are going to tune in 10:30 tonight to the Olympic gold medal game, the U.S. men's team against the French, I did play first half U.S. -6 here. I see almost universally now we're looking at 6.5s. It stands to reason, right, that the U.S. is going to go up. There's going to be a lot of U.S. money here. But I just think that for a lot of reasons, again, if you haven't watched Wager Talk today yet, aside from the comedy portion about Olympic diving, which Steve gets caught up in on a nightly basis, you can get what I had to say about the U.S. men -6 first half. One other quick thing here that they didn't have the first time around is the defensive ability of Drew Holiday, guys. Didn't mention this on the show this morning, but Drew Holiday is likely, even though he's the shooting guard on this team, he's likely to be handling the point guard DiColo for France, who is their all-everything playmaker. So they slow him down a little bit, and things are a lot different. The French don't have a lot of guys that get to the rim. They've got a lot of good shooters, and they've got Rudy Gobert, but they don't have a lot of guys that beat you off the dribble. And I think Drew Holiday, his defensive prowess, which was missing in full effect the first time, will show up here. So U.S. first half -6. I'm not going to talk anybody off of laying the 12.5 or 13. And we'll let Steve defend diving now. I've said my piece.
I defended you, buddy.
I saw that, John. John, I didn't see it till after the show in the live chat. I don't. Unlike the Prez, I don't just stare at the live chat for the entire 50-minute show because it slows my browser down. But I did see that afterwards. I went back to watch the replay to see how my hair looked, and I appreciate that, John. Even better though, Rob, I'm so glad you brought that up because I turned on the Olympics a few hours ago here, and of course it's 13 hours ahead in Japan. And one of the reasons I like watching it late at night is it is live a lot of times.
Right. And
they were basically replaying the stuff I saw last night, the women's volleyball, the women's basketball. So I turned on the third channel, and they had the 275-pound, 125-kilogram. You multiply it by 2.2, so it comes out to 275 pounds. I'm good with my kilogram conversion. It was the men's wrestling and the freestyle. And as a kid growing up, my dad loved freestyle wrestling. We went to a lot of high school wrestling. I don't like the Greco-Roman. I still don't even understand it, to be honest, but I like the freestyle. It's very similar to the high school stuff. And it was the U.S. Finals. In fact, it wasn't live because it was on at 3 this afternoon, so it was from last night. This must have happened last night, Rob, but I had not seen it because, man, I would have mentioned this today on Wager Talk today. In fact, I'm not going to even tell you what happened. Go back and find this. It was one of the most amazing finishes I have ever seen in any Olympic event, and it turns out it was the gold medal match. It was U.S. versus Georgia, 2 wrestlers. I'm not going to even spoil it for you. I literally, look, you guys know me. I don't get too emotional watching sports. I literally said, wow, as this thing finished, and it was for the gold. Go back and watch it. Find the 125-kilogram men's final. It was last night. I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere. It's just the last minute was about as exciting as you will ever see in any sport, any time. Just happened to be freestyle wrestling. by far better than the Chinese 14-year-old diver I was talking about. And man, I wish I'd had this ammo in my arsenal. Wish I'd stayed up a little longer last night. I watched a little more Olympics because it was incredible. I know Rob's going to go watch it. John, you got to go watch it too. Viewers, go find it. The men's gold medal, 125. They'll probably replay it tonight on any highlights and something. It was an incredible finish, really exciting. I'll leave it at that. Oh, yeah, Sirius XM channel 204. Get on the grid.
That's right.
Midnight Eastern tonight with Gabe Morency. I'll be on for an hour, followed by Tony Finn. So from 12 to 2 a.m., you get me and Finn. And then at noon Eastern, 12 to 2 p.m. Saturday, 12 hours later, you get myself and Rob Veno and Joe Ranieri. We are taking over Sirius XM channel 204, Sports Grid TV on your viewing devices. And that's about it.
For those of you who watch this show and like Tony Finn in this time slot, which for him is 1 in the afternoon till 3 in the afternoon, you're going to love him at 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock Pacific time.
He's sedated. He's very sedated on that show, Rob. I don't mind it. He's very behaved.
And it looked like from some things I saw, a photo on Twitter that the WagerTalk family got together yesterday for a kickoff lunch, which Tony was part of. And by the
Tony's
look,
taller, Rob. I saw the photo today as well. Tony's tall. I did not know
6'2".
that. Is he really?
He had told us he's 6'2", yeah.
So I've never met him in person. Rob, have you? Because I don't think John has either. Rob,
no, I haven't.
Okay. I thought you had. Okay.
No, I don't think Tony was in Las Vegas when I was there. Maybe at the tail end. I left in 2002. Maybe Tony was there by then. But the stuff that we did as handicappers then, Tony was not in that circle, which leads me to believe he wasn't in Las Vegas yet.
Right.
But, yeah, he had said like 6'2", 210. So
Shocked.
he's a
Never
big
knew that.
guy. But
I'll
I'll say this, and, I've become friends with Ski, and I love Ski. He looked this morning. I saw his segment on WagerTalk today. Like that party carried on a little bit.
I didn't even think about that.
I thought
Rob.
the same thing.
It was supposed to be like a 2:00 lunch, so that's why I assumed it didn't get out of control. But you never know.
And I know it's early. It's early. It's 9 a.m. Pacific time, right? 9:30 that we're doing that WagerTalk Today's show. But
housekeeping.
The bill of Ski's cap was down a little further this morning. The guys look like they had a workout last night.
And
that's hilarious.
But he asked, why do they use X in NFL X? You could tell by his reaction that he was a bit pale. I'll leave it at that. A bit under the weather.
Yeah, it's interesting because we are in some form of combination. We all do shows intermingled together every day of the week, and people might get the idea that we see a lot of each other, that we hang around each other a lot. But that lunch, Tony had texted me later on at night, and he said it was great that he hadn't seen people like Brian Leonard and others that were at that lunch for
year and a half. Yeah, probably a year and a half at least, right? I mean,
yeah, and I think in that case it was like 3 years he hadn't seen Brian. He went
really?
Picked him up and brought him there. So, and they live in the same town, so we don't cross paths that often. So when we do, on an occasion like that, I can only imagine, you're seeing some friends for the first time in a while. So you extend the party a little bit. You extend the lunch a little bit.
I'm looking forward to when we can all get out to Vegas and have a sports memo / WagerTalk get together. And I know it would have happened had it not been for COVID sooner than later. But, I still seriously want to do the softball game. And Tony Finn has moved up on my draft board after seeing his stat. I was shocked, Rob. I did not know
his spin
he was
rate,
6 foot. He's talked about playing fast pitch softball. He's talked about being a runner. Like, I think he had some athletics in his background. But I never realized he was that tall. Like, a big guy. Like, if you can get a hold of one of those slow pitch softballs, we can use that, I think. We'll get John on. John's an endurance guy. He can run the bases all day. He'll never get tired.
I would be I'll make the announcement official. I have signed a contract with Nick Borman and Carmine. I'm on the WagerTalk golf team whenever we have that get-together. So I don't know what that means.
Well, that means you guys are heavy favorites because I haven't hit a ball in 15-plus years. I got in the batting cage this past Wednesday. You guys will get a kick out of this as we wrap up. But, John, found a hitting – I've maybe only done a pitching machine once in 30 years. Man, was I yesterday freaking sore. My whole right side, hip, oblique. Like, I was hitting some cuts, like 20, 30 cuts. And, man, I'm not doing that again anytime soon. I was nice and balanced all week until that happened. feel like I'm sideways now. Getting too old for this.
Wow.
Slow pitch softball. Yeah, but this was like good 50, 55 mile an hour. You know, it was coming in there, and yeah, that might have been a little heavy as well. But yeah, that's a workout. I mean, these guys are in good shape. I'll give them that.
Well, that's true. So I'm just going to say this real quick. I'm terrible at promoting myself, but I will try. I'm not as good as Rob Veno. He's 22-8. I'm 22-9. Both on pretty good runs. I'm actually number one now in Major League Baseball totals at Sports Memo. So for whatever reason, the models are really starting to kick butt right now. I feel pretty good. I'm seeing the card well. And hopefully, seeing the card well with that Boston game will continue, because that's the one. Those are the games that if you win those, then you're kind of seeing it pretty good. But I have three more bets all packaged up over at Sports Memo for $19. 2 of them are totals. So I hope you guys go over there and buy us all. It's only a couple IPAs that you're spending, and we're pretty good at what we do. So guys, thanks for your time. Steve, I'll see you Monday for another financial show, and Rob, I'll see you 4 o'clock Eastern Standard for Manny's Irish Pub on Monday. I hope you guys have a great weekend and make lots and lots of money for yourself and the clients. And on behalf of Steve, Rob, myself, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, and this series of Predictive Playbook shows, may all the wins and trades be yours.